the way I always view it is like what you emanate from yourself is a frequency, and when other people match that frequency, you're drawn together quite a bit, you know. So I think that's probably what you're feeling.
I'm here today with the wonderfully, fantastically amazing Hilary Rose, who you all probably know mostly from The Young Offenders and potentially Smother, which is in season 2 now at the moment, and it's a great show. But Hilary is so many more things than the actor that we see. She was a DJ when I first knew her, a really, really funny person in general, and she also has a really cool blog about living wild and free, which we'll talk about a bit later on. But as you know, the purpose of these kind of videos is to understand more about how people who are like using video every day, how they use it, and some tips that we can kind of learn from them to help us get better at using video as part of our business. And I suppose, Hilary, would you actually see yourself as a business person? Even though you're an actor, would you consider yourself a sole trader?
Yeah, I would actually. And I think it's really interesting that you've brought that up, because I think when people go into the arts, that's the last thing on their mind. But definitely you have to be a bit of an entrepreneur to be in the creative arts and to be working separately. So nearly every actor is a sole trader. Yeah, absolutely.
And do you hate that part about it, or are you cool with it?
At the start, it took me a while to wrap my head around it, but I'm cool with it now, and I find it really interesting because it gives you a level of freedom that perhaps you wouldn't find in another job. So that's what I really like about it, you know.
Yeah, I love the entrepreneur side of life, and I love learning more about marketing and then applying it and seeing what things work and what doesn't work.
Which you can only do by kind of, I won't say failing, I think failing is the wrong word, but like experience.
Yeah. Actually, one of the first times I met you, it was while I was editing The Fear, and I was over in your house and you were recording self-tapes. And I'd love to hear how, because I think that you were using a kind of DSLR back then, and maybe a kind of the Zoom H5 or something, or H1 it probably was at the time. We're not that old. But I can't remember your setup, but I was like, God, I didn't actually realise that actors had to do that. How has that process, how many do you do actually? Do you do them a lot? And how has your process evolved?
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to think of the time frame. That was probably 8 years ago, I would say. Yeah, so 8 years ago, yes, it was more, auditions were kind of half in the room and half self-tape. And self-tapes were so tricky because, you know, the quality wasn't there on the iPhones and the sound wasn't, you know, the sound quality wasn't amazing. So yes, I was using setups like that, which I can barely remember now that you've said it. I'm like, oh my God, I did use that. But it has vastly changed. So nowadays, before you even get in the door to do an audition face to face with somebody, you do a self-tape first. And your second round could be a Zoom meeting online, and then your third round might be face-to-face in the room with the casting director or with the director. And sometimes you might just get cast off your initial self-tape, or you might get cast off your Zoom meeting. So it's very rare nowadays to have it kind of face-to-face. And I think it was definitely going that way prior to 2020. And then 2020, obviously, everybody had to kind of go online. So what I use now basically is my iPhone, because the sound is incredible on it, and this isn't an ad for for Apple or anything, but the sound quality is incredible. And then I've just got the new one, so it has cinematic, which I'm dying to test out, which is lovely. And then my setup is a couple of nice softbox lights, and that's kind of it. A quiet space, blank background always for self-tapes, a neutral background, more often white. Try not to have any graffiti or art or anything in the background. It's always a blank background and some decent lighting.
And have you noticed, do you ever watch back to your first self-tapes and look at the difference between them and now?
Luckily, I don't have them anymore.
Good. Yeah. They're physical tapes, no.
Yeah, no, they're buried on a hard drive somewhere that I don't ever want to see. So I'd say there's a massive difference. But even this year alone, like, I was being a little bit lazy with my self-tapes up until this year. I went, okay, Hilary, like, you're a working actor, you need to really improve the quality. I only got softbox lights in the last couple of months, and, you know, switched up I got a tripod for my camera phone, whereas before I was kind of using the camera on my laptop, which was really rubbish. It was really rubbish. So, and my agent came back to me in the last couple of months. He's like, God, the quality of your tapes have really improved. I was like, yeah, it's about time. So I've only done that recently. So yeah.
Wow. And I teach a lot about sound, like, why sound is so important. And it's actually, there's loads of research being done, after being done, on the impact that sound has on how the audience actually perceives you. And this study came out in 2018 where it made people listen to, I think it was a professor on a stage speaking about biology or something like that. And it would ask them to rate how intelligent they thought the professor was, how did they trust what he was saying in his story, a few different things. And they lowered the sound quality in one recording and boosted the sound quality in another recording, and there was actually a noticeable difference in the surveys about how he was trusted, how he was seen as more influential when his sound quality was actually improved, which is just mind-blowing. Have you noticed that you're getting more responses since the quality is picked up, or do you think that directors can see past it?
I think directors and casting directors can definitely look beyond it a little bit, but at the same time, they're kind of expecting a certain level from actors. I totally agree. Sound quality is just, it's just as important as picture, and people overlook that quite a bit, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And tell me about a big one, because I think that people would never think that you suffer from any type of imposter syndrome. You always come across so confident, and you have to, be a really confident person, I think, to be an actor in general. So when you're about to self-tape, or when you're about to do an Instagram story or something like that, do you ever suffer from that, like, or watch it back and go, not putting it up?
These days, not so much. Like in the very early days when I met you and we were working together on the Hidden Camera show, I suffered majorly from imposter syndrome. I was like, what am I doing here? I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. I think this is going in the right direction. I don't even really enjoy this job very much. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do at that point, but I wasn't getting the roles that I wanted at that point. So there was a certain amount of imposter syndrome of me going, I don't know why I'm doing this or why I'm here. But luckily it has panned out okay. And I think they say fake it till you make it. I think that's kind of right. These days, no, I don't really. I'm kind of like, I think I've realigned my values a little bit as well. So I would have put a lot of weight on my career, and I would have focused quite a bit. And because of that, it absorbed quite a lot of my life and a lot of my attention. Whereas I've shifted away from that quite a bit, and I see it as a lot of fun now. So like, I treat my jobs with fun. I love having fun on set. I love my job. I'm, very studious when it comes to it. And I take it very seriously to the point that I want to do a good job, but I try not to take myself seriously anymore. And I think the second you stop taking yourself seriously, you kind of drop all those like negative expectations almost of yourself a little bit. That's how I feel anyway. So these days I don't really, yes, I do self-edit, certainly when it comes to creating my own content. I'll do a number of takes and I'll go, I don't know if I like that one, or whatever. There might be a fluff in it, I might fluff a line or something. I don't rehearse anything, but if I kind of run out of steam in what I'm saying, then definitely I'll go back and do a different take. But I won't let it bother me, essentially.
Wow, yeah. And, that whole, I suppose, professional thing, I'm just coming out of that. I'm recovering from professionalism at the moment. And and I'm finding it really hard to drop my guard. Like, I think that there's a big difference. So I make videos, which I'm very used to presenting to teleprompter, scripted content, newsy style, kind of lighting, camera, all this kind of stuff. When I try and pick up the phone and record a TikTok, like, I might as well have never held a phone in my life. Like, I feel completely alien. I look back, I'm like, it's all wrong. And trying to get from, I wonder if you feel the same, this illusion anyway of lights, camera, action, trying to, and yours way more than mine, but like moving from the way people perceive you as they see you on the big screen to seeing you on Instagram. I wonder, does that give you a bit of as well sometimes?
Not really, because I think, again, it's something that changed fundamentally inside myself over the last number of years, is that I don't really give any weight to what people think of me, in a sense. And I don't mean to sound callous in that respect, but I stopped worrying what people thought about me. So once you let that go, it doesn't matter what's on video. You know what I mean? Like, even on set, working on big jobs, working with new people, sometimes I get a bit like, oh, they're new people, they don't know me, and oh, if I make a mess of this, they're going to think that I'm not good. And I can feel that old panic kind of rising in me a little bit. And then I just go, no, it's okay. You don't need validation from them. The only validation that I feel that is worthwhile is self-validation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So otherwise you can get tied up in knots about what other people think of you, be it on a professional set or be it doing your own, self-tape or video for Instagram at home or TikTok or whatever.
I don't think people realise how many people actually work on set until maybe they see the credits at the end. And I wonder what it's like for you. Like, there could be 60 people looking at you.
Yeah.
The first day you walk on and say a few lines. How do you do that? Like, it just from experience, is it?
Yeah, it's totally fine. The first couple of times on set, it is tough because it's really like, oh my God, again, imposter syndrome. What am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing. And, there's, and because as well, most of the time crew would probably have a little bit more experience than a fresh new actor coming out on set for the whole time. So that is intimidating, certainly. But it's just experience. You just get used to it. And then, as long as you've done the work yourself, your internal work as the actor and as a professional, then, you're kind of, I won't say bulletproof because stuff can go wrong that you can unfortunately get wrapped up in. But I think, again, it's about being true to yourself in the moments and just let the party continue without you.
Or attend the party later.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that people are not disillusioned, but don't really understand the life behind the scenes of an actor? Because do you think that they think that you get picked up by a chauffeur in the morning, brought to set?
I do.
Do you do?
I do.
I remember on The Young Offenders, like, Hilary would drive herself to set 100% and, follow us everywhere. And even when she wasn't on scenes and stuff like that, a huge, you weren't just an actor, you were a huge part of the production of that. But now you're on bigger things. Is it different?
Yeah, definitely different in that there's okay, I suppose The Young Offenders is something different to compare to, because Young Offenders, the movie, is what we're talking about, in the sense that we self-funded, we did everything ourselves, you were part of the team. So you really do have to just muck in and do it. When you get to do bigger productions, we'll say, that are kind of have more funding behind them, there is a protocol, obviously, that you kind of have to fit in with, and sometimes being driven around is part of that. But it's not like I'm swanning on set. You show up at 6 a.m. into hair and makeup or whatever time it might be, or you might be picked up to be on set for 7 a.m. or whatever. And the only reason that you are fed and chauffeured around is that they want to keep everybody together. They don't want to lose any actors. And I feel sorry for the ADs on set, because I always think, like, trying to round up actors is like trying to herd cats. They could be anywhere doing anything, So that's really the only reason why we're kept together. And I always think it's like a prison. Like, being on set is almost like being in this kind of sociable prison where, if you go to the loo, you have to tell them you're going to the loo, So it's certainly not as glamorous as people expect. Yes, there's lovely moments, and of course it is great, and it's such an interesting job. But as for glamour, not necessarily. The glamour kind of comes when you maybe get to do a photo shoot for a magazine, or you get to go to an award ceremony and you get to dress up nicely. That's kind of it. Other than that, it's extremely long hours. Sometimes you're sitting, in cold, dark spaces. And that's okay, because they're all the times that you can sit and connect with your cast members, or have cups of tea in random places and learn about, if you're filming in an old house, you get to learn the history of an old house. That's the stuff that I love. That's, for me, the real richness of what I do as an actor, is not just the characters that I play, but the whole experience as an actor, being on set, on location, working with new people. I love all that,
Amazing. And then, switching it then to behind the scenes. So you're not just swanning around your house in Manola Blahniks and, like writing magazine articles and things like that. You're actually, I knew this about you very early on. I knew that you were always a very deep person, I think is the best way to describe it.
Thank you.
That there's a whole layer of just depth to you that is, you can have a conversation with you about anything, really, any topic, and you'll actually have already pre-thought knowledge about it as well, which is great. And I think that's where your Live Wild and Free blog maybe stemmed from, is that other side of you that's actually really holistic and really into nature. But I think that people would be maybe like, really? You know, because they're used to seeing the IFTA's version of you. They're used to seeing the red carpet version of you and that kind of stuff. So,
or the character's version of you, as well, which is completely different.
Yeah, from Rinka to Living Wild and Free. But do you think that, are you worried about that? I suppose you've already answered that already with overcoming that fear of what other people think. But do you think that it will confuse your audience? And I know that's a very marketing way of putting it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I guess, like, for me, I started the blog, it's livewild.ie, and I started it just because it was really just for me. It was purely for me. I started it during 2020 when we were all feeling quite constricted, and I was like, I really feel like I want to do something and express myself in a way that is very true to me. Truth is very important to me. So that's where that came from. And again, yeah, it's a whole other side to me that I suppose people outside of my private life wouldn't be aware of. And I'm happy to share that. And it's, you know, I go barefoot walking in the woods, or go sea swimming, or, you know, experiment with different things, meditation, all that kind of stuff. And I love it. I really love it. And it felt like as well at the time that there was a really big appetite for this stuff, that people were really craving it. And I think for me, the blog was all about kind of self-connection, like connecting deeply within oneself. And I think that is something that people are really craving, but they can't quite put a finger on what it is, or don't have the vocabulary to express it in that way, knowing that they want something more but don't quite know what it is, and anything that they reach for externally is not satisfying them anymore. So I find that really fascinating, and I think it's on the rise for people. You know, they're looking for something internal rather than external. It's a really beautiful thing.
And I've noticed that as well. Like, I've noticed that I can have conversations with people in topics that I never spoke to them about before. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and people have more of a breadth of things that they're interested in or something, or if it's because of, you know, like what's happened in recent years, people are getting a chance to look internal, or is it just the people who I'm attracting to myself because I'm starting to be more open and be more truthful about who I am and what I like doing and what I don't like doing. But what do you think? I know that's not even a question.
Yeah, no, it's probably all of the above, though. I think you're right. I think it's a mixture of all those things. People are really reaching out for each other at the moment now. And I suppose, like, the way I always view it is like what you emanate from yourself is a frequency, and when other people match that frequency, you're drawn together quite a bit, you know. So I think that's probably what you're feeling.
Oh, 100%. Cool. And I actually feel my frequency is different. I actually do. But I remember being stuck in a low frequency, and I was hearing this stuff saying, raise your frequency. And I'm like, what do I plug into to raise my, how do you do that? Now that I feel like it's raised, I'm able to look back and go, okay, but I still don't know how I got there. Or
interesting. Yeah,
I think it was just bullying myself into stop being like negative.
That's part of it. I mean, I feel like for me, it's kind of like the frequency of love is the highest frequency that one can attain. And to try and stay in that space all the time is really hard. It's such a challenge, like in your everyday life, in everything that you do. But I think awareness is probably the first step. So if you have awareness of the thoughts, which might be negative thoughts or lower frequency thoughts, once you step into the awareness of, okay, I'm in this negative loop pattern again, why am I thinking this? That's the first step. And then you could then see what's interesting is you have free will. So once you have awareness of maybe a negative loop or a negative thought or a lower frequency, you can then make the choice. Do you want to stay in that lower frequency, or do you want to shift that frequency into something higher and better, more beautiful, which usually comes from love. Love for everything. Love for, like, I love that carpet. We had a discussion about the carpet. Now, I did say I didn't like the carpet earlier, but, you know, things like that. Oh, I love this setup. I love talking to Judie. You know, I love the day, even though it's rainy and misting, you know, it's fresh, you know, so it's, you have, like, we're all given free will. And that's what's really interesting about us being sovereign beings, is that you have the choice to change your frequency whenever you want. Somebody's after changing their frequency outside the window there.
That's probably a good time to wrap it up. But then, Hilary, I'd love to talk to you about this stuff all day, but what are you planning for next, or what's coming up on your horizon?
So at the moment, Smother season 2 is out, so that's always nice to have, work done and then see it go on air, which is lovely. And I think after that, there's definitely more development of the Live Wild blog. I think that's it's something that I'm really focused on, and I think there's an audience for it, and I'm really enjoying doing it. So more of that, and other stuff as well that I can never really talk about this. So
Brilliant. Listen, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be back again with another interview which I haven't planned yet. See you soon.